You know the friendly, calming restaurant management game that you played as a kid in class hoping you didn't get caught? Now imagine that game, but with an added element of terror as you quickly try to prepare your pizza, as Papa Louie is there watching you, waiting for you to slip up. Well, that's the game I plan on making, and it wasn't as easy as I first thought. I decided to make the game 3D, since while there are great 2D horror games, I thought reimagining Papa's Pizzeria in 3D would be a cool bonus. But that might have been a bad decision, since I've never made a 3D game before. Also forgot to mention I've never made a horror game before either, so this will be fun. Before anything, I need a name for my 3D horror pizza making simulator, and after a couple of just terrible ideas, I decided to go with Crusty Nightmares. You can be the judge of that name. I wanted to first start by making my very own pizzeria restaurant. Well, it won't be totally mine, because I was just scrolling on the Unity asset store when I found this fast food restaurant kit. It had tables, chairs, lights, and most importantly, a counter which you could serve food from. It was the perfect starting point, but I knew I had to change some things. Since I had the task of transforming this fast food restaurant into a pizzeria, I removed and retextured a bunch of the colourful furniture, because I'm not going for a child-centred horror theme. I changed the lampshade colours and the walls to brick with some dark wood accents. In Papa's Pizzeria, the restaurant floor has that iconic green colour, which I made sure to add too. Wait, I had no idea there were toilets here. What? But you still can't tell that it's a pizzeria, let alone Papa Louie's fine establishment. And so to make sure no one makes that mistake again, I put some premium pizzas out on some of the tables. This is what the game looks like right now. It's not particularly scary at the moment, but I first needed to add the main game loop. In Papa's Pizzeria there are 4 stations: the order station, topping station, bake station and cutting station. Each station has its own purpose in the pizza making process. But I didn't end up adding the cutting station because I felt like it would take a little too long to add, and I don't want to spend too long making this game. I'm sorry to the cutting station fans out there. Now, there are loads of toppings in the original Papa's Pizzeria. I was thinking, should I just add them all? But instead of spending all my time drawing pizza toppings, which I would happily do, I stopped myself. I decided to draw 4 to start with, which unlock in this order: pepperoni, mushroom, ham and pineapple. Now, if anyone decides not to play the game based on the fact you can put pineapple on pizza, I don't know what to say. When a customer gives you a pizza order, you write it down on this order note. So I drew the order note that you will receive, making sure to include the bake time, the order number and a list of toppings with the amount and where they want to be placed. I spent way too long making it so multiple order notes can be placed and picked up on the counter. But finally the order system is complete and you can take pizza orders from absolutely nobody. This is a little different to Papa's Pizzeria though, since you can usually pick up a note and put it on the side so you can always see the order. But I thought it would be better to have that little extra challenge where you're shuffling through your notes, frantically trying to remember the customer's order. Right now you can look and move the camera around to see whatever you want, but I didn't want that. In horror games generally, the less you see, the more fear you feel. So I instead went for a static camera view, which I think suited the game much better. I set up one camera for each station and drew some station switching icons. So now when you press them, they transition to the station's camera. I then found the perfect cheese pizza that I'll use as a base to put toppings on in my game. If you gave me that pizza, I would be just fine. But I guess we have to add some toppings. After filling each of these bowls with their toppings, the drag and drop system to pick up and place them on the pizza wasn't too difficult to add. So now you can get your pizza, add all the toppings you like, and then move the pizza to the bake station. And if anyone asks, yes, we are going to cook the pizzas on top of the oven. At the moment, there was no way to tell how long the pizzas had been cooked for. So I put these hob timers next to each hob that start when you first place a pizza on them. I also made it so the pizza gets more burn over time, until you have a pretty fried looking pizza. When you click on a pizza in the baking station, I wanted to add a little serve cutscene, so I grabbed this pizza box model online and put together a small animation that you can now see, that serves the pizza to... Oh yeah, still haven't added those customers yet. This next part literally took me days to implement, and it was all just maths and numbers. Can you guess what it was? It was the rankings you get once you serve the pizza, which rank your performance in each station. I'll save you the boringness of how I got these working, but when you serve the pizza, you now get rated on how long the customer waited for the pizza, if there are the right number of toppings in the right places, and the baking time. Let's take a step back now. I now have the core gameplay loop of Papa's Pizzeria, but as I said before, I want Papa Louie to be there also, judging your pizzas. For certain reasons, Papa Louie will now be Papa Lee, and I'm super excited to try to make my very own scary 3D model of a chef. Oh yeah, I might have also forgot to mention that I've never made a 3D model before as well. So after following my first ever modeling tutorial on Blender, I made this. I gave up 3D modeling entirely and started to sketch instead. Just kidding, I'm just sketching some ideas first for how I want Papa Lee to look before I try to make him in 3D. Oh no, Papa Louie, what have I done to you? When I had gathered the courage to open Blender again, I started making the face first. I tried to stick to my sketch as much as possible, so I made the mustache, the neck, and his sort of wavy body that I drew. I added some arms and huge feet, and now it was time to add the iconic chef's hat. After adding some colour and a set of terrifying teeth, I was really happy with how Papa Lee had turned out. I ended up adding the eyes in Unity and put the guy into Mixer mode so I could look for some truly frightening animations. It was now time to make my game actually scary. These animations I have now are great. Just imagine Papa Lee chasing you, like that. To make the game scary, I did some research on horror games and learned that a lot of what makes a good horror game is about increasing the sense of fear for the player, and not just shoving a jump scare in at every chance possible. I messed with the atmosphere of the game so it now looks a little more ominous, and I added these constant broken light bulbs that keep switching on and off. I then thought of adding what I called tension builders. These deploy when you first start to mess up in the game, so hopefully you feel that increasing sense of dread. I added quite a few, like objects getting thrown around randomly, light flickers and changes, sinister sounds playing from random places, and this loud heartbeat sound effect. The next increase in fear is going to come from a sighting of Papa Lee, and I had so much fun doing these. I tried to make it so you never fully see his face or eyes. You'll see him crawling in random places that you did not expect, running outside the pizzeria, standing looking away, and this. These tension builders and sightings are tied to the rankings for the pizzas you make in the game. If you didn't know, in Papa's Pizzeria, when you serve a pizza, you get a reaction from elated all the way to enraged, based on the rankings you get from the different stations. So I changed the numbers a little and made it so more tension builders get called, the worse reaction you get. And you will only get a possible Papa Lee sighting if the reaction is lower than dissatisfied. Oh yeah, and if you get the elated reaction, all tension builders and possible sightings are cancelled, so you will have a moment of safety and relief. Unless it's already too late. But I had to stop all of this when I came across this bug where some of the furniture would just not stop dancing. They just didn't want to stop, no matter what. After fixing a few bugs, my game was definitely looking more scary, but it was still missing something. The famous jump scare. Something every horror game in the entire world has. My jump scare will be possible after a Papa Lee sighting. And this was also my first time attempting a jump scare, and it did not start out well at all. This was my first try. And while Papa Lee was doing his job, looking like a very scary chef indeed, it was all too static. So I realised the only way to go was to create my own animated jump scare. And that meant reopening Blender, fully custom rigging Papa Lee, weight painting, and then animating the jump scare that I actually wanted. I made it so he jumps up to the camera, shakes his head like a crazy man, and puts his arms out as he gets even closer to the camera. After putting him back into Unity, I added sound and some post-processing effects, and I'm really happy with my final jump scare animation. Since my game is super scary now, I have one last thing to add, which I might have been putting off, but it is finally time. I need to add customers to serve the pizzas to in my game. In Papa's Pizzeria, there are a bunch of unique customers that come to your restaurant. But I quickly looked for some models online and grabbed a few that I liked. I was kind of worried to add customers because I thought it would take away from the horror experience. But after adding these to my game, I feel like they unexpectedly add to the horror. Just look how scary they all look here, and here too, as he's just waiting for you to take his order. So after adding the customers, an idea for another Papa Lee sighting popped into my head. I made it so he now has a chance of appearing at the back of the line of customers. This was just one of the things I did when I polished the game. I added a lose screen when you lose, that shows the pizzas you served and your overall service rating. I did some quality of life improvements, such as pausing timers like the baking and customer spawning timers in serve cutscenes, and making it so when you first start the game, nothing starts until you take your first order. I lastly added baking sounds, and randomised the topping rotations when you place them on the pizza. And then that was my game done. The relaxing childhood game Papa's Pizzeria has now been turned into a 3D horror game by yours truly, and you can play it for free in the link in the description if you're interested. What would you add to this game?